Welcome to the Your Little Castle Show, where we highlight the best experts that make your home into your little castle. Let's go! Well, ladies and gentlemen, I get to meet really interesting, cool, influential people just because I'm lucky, I guess.
Exactly.
Is that how life works sometimes?
That's what you told me.
In studio, everyone, Merle Schneider, a legend when it comes to real estate, and just people need a place to live. And you've helped that happen for thousands of people.
I sure have. Yep.
Especially when you consider, I understand, I didn't tell you this before I brought you on. From what I understand, I don't know how many agents, but it's a lot of agents that you've had over the years that have worked for you. And therefore, and the average agent doesn't come in and just sell one house, right? They're doing dozens, if not hundreds of houses.
Exactly.
So the agency that you've run for, how many years have you been in business?
Since 1975.
1975. And so, ladies and gentlemen, warm welcome to Merle Schneider, merleschneider.com.
That's right.
And that is
I'm a co-owner of Schneider Real Estate with my son, Court Schneider, C-O-R-T, Court Schneider. He's the boss now. He's the president.
Does that take a little weight off? So you've got, now Merle Schneider is your endeavor, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And so merleschneider.com, which I'll put up here for everybody to see.
All right. See, I'm kind of like Sonny and Cher. I'm like Cher. When I sign in, I just sign Merle, and everybody knows the rest.
Merle.
Yeah.
It's kind of a unique name. That's cool. But you are, I'd heard about you for years, and I'm like,
really?
What would it take for me to get to meet this Merle guy?
Well, I see you all the time out there, out and about, but you're always too busy.
I'm running around like happened tonight. Merle has been so courteous as to come in late on an evening for us to chat, because we got excitement. We were at the NASCAR, and had one of my sponsors said, "We got tickets for you. We want you to be there and shouting and doing the good word, fun stuff."
Well, you had a great day for it. Holy cow!
How
gorgeous.
Cool is, now, how awesome is a city of St. Louis? I know your focus is in St. Charles, obviously, but you've serviced, how many counties did you told me?
5 counties.
5 counties that you've sold houses in.
Oh, absolutely.
Over the years. And that means if you've done 5 counties in Missouri, and they're the most populous, outside, I guess, Kansas City is on the other side of the state, but that's part of, I mean, there's a lot of people that you've covered, millions.
Yes, sir.
If not 3 or 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, depending on how far that's a lot of people to help.
Yep.
And I guess that's why you've done so well, because you can't help that many people and last as long as you have.
It's a great real estate community. It really is. Good numbers for the community.
All right, well, tell everybody some of the secrets. We're curious as to know what is it that made Schneider Real Estate take off? What's the secret?
Well, the background really is, and I can't claim all the credit, I graduated from Truman back when it was the Little Red Schoolhouse back in 1970.
Okay.
But in any event, I got a business degree, and I always knew I wanted to be self-employed. I actually took an offer downtown St. Louis and did life insurance and became a financial planner. And I spent about 15 years. I got a designation called Chartered Financial Consultant and Chartered Life Underwriter. I also studied and got my stockbroker's license. But basically, I did financial planning. Parallel to that, my 3 siblings, Cal Schneider, Joan Schneider, which is now Joan Wagner, and Len Schneider, they kind of started Schneider Real Estate in 75. So it was a year after I got out of college. So I wasn't quite doing the real estate yet at that point. And they were, I think, motivated. My mom and dad, man, they were awesome. They're up in heaven now, but they lived well into their mid-90s. They were married over 71 years, and they had 8 children, and 6 of us all went into real estate. So now the second generation, my son Court is active in real estate. I have another son, Aaron, that helps me, I'll talk more about that later, buy investment. And he's a superintendent of all the properties. We'll talk about that later. I have a brother with Cushman Wakefield, does commercial, and his son Joe is going to eventually take that over. But in any event, I was drawn to it. My dad always had some rental property when we were growing up. You know, during the summer, when everybody else was getting out and playing ball or whatever during the day, he'd wake us up at 7 in the morning. We always had oatmeal in the morning. He put us in the Volkswagen bus and drove us to Overland or wherever he had a rental property, and he'd work us all day. But we learned a lot, both about the physical property but he would sit at the kitchen table and talk about a second deed of trust and, just different things that we picked up on. So I think it was a natural then that so many of us went into real estate.
Well, it is an interesting industry from the perspective that, like, you literally impact lives. I mean, there's a lot of people that really want to get into this real estate world, and it's tough. You've been doing it. You told me before the show you got your license when you were 28.
No. Well, yeah, it was 1980. So how old would it have been back then? I was born in 52.
Okay.
Just yesterday. That's where I saw you yesterday.
Weeks. That's right. We were at Merle's. Can we tell me the number?
You may as well.
Okay, 70 years old. He looks like he's about 45.
There you go.
But,
good answer.
And so we're about the same age in terms of relative, the way we operate or think, right? But when you at 20, so what year was it you got your license? You said in
1980.
80. So yeah, 20 because.
But I was still doing the financial planning then. But the reason I got the license is I would refer my siblings, and legally they could send me a referral fee. But it wasn't until around 90 where I moved into their office. I moved my financial planning. So I thought, well, rather than refer it, why don't I start working some of those customers that I would normally refer? And guess what happened? I found out I fell in love with real estate, and I tapered off on the financial planning. But what you do, and both of them are very similar skill sets. So it lent itself well to the merging over to real estate.
Well, I reserve the right to bring up topics as they appear. We have a standard kind of resume of questions that we like to cover. What's your passion? How did you get started with this? But when you talk about the financial side, like you mentioned, a home purchase is one of the biggest financial decision most people make in their entire life.
Right.
And it has such a huge impact on their. For instance, I know people, I won't say any specifics, but literally they have a house, that is their biggest asset. When they're into their retirement age, that can become the asset that helps them through retirement, right?
Right.
It's hard to work when you're 90. Some
Right.
people will do that, but a lot of people don't want to. And they're like, hey, I saved up, but where does that resource come from? And the house becomes something that they can sell, I guess, at whatever
Right.
age, and then use the money that they made off of that, because houses seem to appreciate most of the time, right? And now you've got a great asset. So literally, I didn't think of it that way, but financial kind of, not exactly, you can't call yourself a financial planner, I guess, but you really help people financially more than the financial planner does sometimes.
Right.
Is that
Right.
fair? I mean, it's
we find that most
financial...
people who have built wealth in the United States, most of them have done it via real estate. But what's interesting is I don't try to hot dog it. I was working today in the last couple of days with a young lady, and she's got a friend, and they're leasing their first rental house. And the questions they asked me, it was kind of cute actually, but every time I would answer a question or later on by text, they would have 3 more questions. But for them, that's still big. They're getting out of mom and dad's house, and that's step number 1 is just renting and living on their own. So I just love being a part of any of that.
That is yes. That's I've come from a family of educators. My parents are all, and family is all into the education part of the world. Mom being a high school teacher, dad college admissions counselor, sister grade school teacher.
Right.
And really, when you get that impact into somebody's life, where you're something, I'll say this too: how often do people end up? And this is where, Mom, I love you, Dad, you guys are great. They don't teach finances so well in the education system these days. A lot of people argue that. Elon Musk made a big issue. He wasn't the first one to say that. So how often do you find yourself going, let me explain to you the path? And it sounds like starting off with rent to get on your feet, and then helping them to become adults who have assets.
And I give my dad credit for that. Like I said, he did it, he helped people, but he also talked it. And for some reason, he had an inspiration when we were all starting to get out of college. He called a dinner, and we met over at the Three Flags Center right over here in St. Charles, and we had a nice family dinner. But he said, I think with what you guys are doing, including there were 7 of us boys and 1 girl, my sister Joan, and he said, I think someday you guys ought to go into business together. So he had no idea. We're just now approaching 45 years of Schneider Real Estate. So he actually, I guess, launched it in his thoughts and words and deeds, but he made us think about it.
Well, your name has become legendary within the St. Charles and St. Louis area, and for so many years, I actually had been over to your shop a couple times. nice facility you have over there. Lots of agents working in the building there, and it's just everybody said if you're going to do real estate in the St. Charles area, Schneider's going to be part of what's going on.
Now, I've always heard I'm a legend in my own mind. Is that what you heard? Because I don't know that I would call myself a legend, but no, I do eat and drink and live real estate. And like you said, I turned 70, and people always use that R word, and I'm like, I don't even know what retire means. Why would I do that? Because they say if you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
True. And when you get into that, so what would you say, tangent on some of the questions we like to ask, but if you had to pick something you felt as though it was your secret, it was what helped you set yourself apart, that made you the success that you and your family have become. I mean, it's essentially, from what I understand, you're essentially the guy who built it. I mean, I guess your dad kind of.
Well, no, I'm not going to take that credit.
Okay.
Cal, he's in heaven now. Cal went to heaven 2 or 3 years ago. But Len, Joan, Keith, my brother Roger, they all contributed in their own way, and I learned from them.
Okay.
They learned some things from me, but I don't want to. No, I'm not.
Not
that could be a tough one to go face
some
them.
Some of the family members might have a discussion with you.
Yeah, that could get rough.
But it's just the name I'd heard. And maybe I was misinformed. But I mean, it's for certain that you're the name that is associated with the essentially running the company for most of the time.
Well, I would say I'm a bit more social, a more social butterfly. So I do get out into the community, and not to get off track, but I've been behind the microphone a few times. And back in 2008, when the market started to crash, I got frustrated with local media, and it wasn't anything they did wrong, but they didn't realize, like I do, real estate is local. And what's happening in the sand states of California and Florida and Arizona may not relate exactly to this locality. So I made it a point during that time I created a video and a PowerPoint. I called it Local Real Estate Crashing Our Window of Opportunity. I gave a presentation to every chamber. I went to TV stations. I was on Money Talk on the radio. But anyway, like I said, I'm a little bit more, I get out there a little bit more. That's why you probably saw me. But you were asking what's one of my keys.
Right. What would you say made it happen?
And again, I'm going to give the credit to my dad. My dad and mom together, working together, were the Bonnie and Clyde of negotiating. And I took notes, mental notes, and I actually created a class, and I teach it at the association. So they get continuing education credits. They get 3 hours of credit, and I teach real estate strategies through negotiation. So if I were to say anything that's really helped me is to have a black belt in negotiating. So I teach agents. I've taught over 500 of my competitors. They come up to me during break and they go, "Are you still selling?" I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Why are you teaching us everything that you know?" I said, "Well, if I ever do a transaction with you, bring your best game. I'll see how I do." But I'm not too worried about that. But I've taught over 500 realtors. They're continuing it, and they say it's the best class they've had. It's nuts and bolts on things that are going to happen, and I teach them to not get engaged in the emotion because the buyers and sellers have a lot of emotion.
Sure.
And I've broken that rule, and I've called the other agent and say, I confessed, I broke that rule, and I have to say I'm sorry about that. But most of the time I'm able, but I teach all the different fundamentals of how to negotiate, building inspections, price, terms, everything. So that's what I think I've become known for.
Well, that leads to part of the mantra, if you will. Here on the Your Little Castle show, our focus is effectively to associate with those who help build our community, to help others. I mean, that's the whole message we try to convey here, because it takes more than one person can ever do on their own. Mm-hmm. And the more people you find, it was a trick that I kind of accidentally fell into, but I started to work with a ton of charities. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm going to really help these charities. And then I began to realize when I helped them, then it came back around. And I like what you were saying about the fact that you were teaching your competitors, but it was just like, there's enough to go around.
Right.
And it kind of inadvertently says, hey, I have enough confidence in myself to realize that I'm going to do a great job. I know what I'm doing, and I'm willing to help other people along the way.
I live in a world of plenty.
the unlimited universe they talk about.
Right.
That's a great attitude, and I think that's really one of the secrets that people have that make for success. I'm going to throw up on the wall here your website. Take a look here, everybody. You can see the TV wall behind us. Shout out to our sponsor there, Carroll House Furniture. My buddy Brooke. I don't know, how many houses do you think Brooke has put furniture in? You fill a large percentage of those, I would assume.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's just a great guy that we love having be part of.
I've heard that name since I was, a youngster. Really,
Yes.
it's been around as long as the Schneider name.
Yeah. That's probably fair to say. The two names are definitely those that convey.
Well, they took it over from their parents, right? So
right.
we
Yes.
have a lot in common.
Yes, and that is
Family
just a
owned.
good strategy to build and to share and to just do with integrity. We've had Brooke on the show a few times, and he just really laid it out. He says, our housekeeping cleaning crew is vitally important.
Right.
And I would never talk down to them or anyone because everybody's important. Everybody's equal. Everybody deserves to be treated with respect. And if you go with that attitude towards life, then life is a little easier for you.
That's right.
There's some people who don't convey that, and it's interesting. I don't know why that would come about. But check it out, everybody. Take a look on the wall behind us. You can see there. I'm going to take off our title graphic. I'm going to go ahead and put up on the wall the screen for you guys to see here. So this is merleschneider.com, and I'm even going to do a quick refresh on the screen here so that you can get the latest functional cool stuff that comes up there. So everybody can see our screen here, and this is where you can get plenty of information.
Yes.
And you've got, you showed me there, you've got all the listings out there. People can see what's going on in our community.
But I also share other agents, other realtors outside of Schneider Real Estate. So it's done through Maris, which is the multiple listing service. So we all cooperate together. We're competitors, but at the same time, it's a very cooperative community of professionals. And again, on the St. Louis side, Warren County, Jefferson County, we all understand what we're all trying to accomplish, the same thing: help somebody buy or sell and move some real estate.
And that's a great, again, part of that same strategy. Is that the secret here we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen? That just, to me, is so cool. And I guess, what would you say is the number one tip you would recommend to somebody who's just getting started as a real estate agent? If they're really going to get into this thing,
Well, I
would
would say back when I got out of college and from Truman in '70, I started selling life insurance, and that's an intangible. And I did what I called dialing for dollars every Monday night. And I would call births, people that had children, marriages. But today, too many times, I think in real estate, we get a little bit lazy where we're expecting it just to come to us because we're so famous. But I still, to this day, pick that phone up and I'm dialing for dollars, calling past clients, seeing how they're doing. But it's just contact people, contact people. If you went through a subdivision and you knocked on 100 doors and shook your head no and say, you really don't want to buy or sell any real estate, do you? You would actually have certain people say, well, wait a minute. So it's a numbers game, and you don't want to expect that the fish are going to jump out of the water into your boat. You probably have to do a little bit of work.
And that is a great point too, because it does seem that everybody's like, oh, a computer, it's automated, it'll just pop up and I can just pick up the phone and they're going to call me. That's not how it works. Still to this day, your argument is, if you're going to get this done, you've got to get out there and go after it. And
Well, that's the other thing. Get out in the community. You talked about charitable, and I wouldn't brag or God would strike me dead, but I was fortunate. The St. Charles Chamber a couple of years ago awarded me the Humanitarian Award. I started a couple of years ago. I always had this thing about auctioning, and I taught myself how to auction. And then I started getting, and I've never charged a penny, but I have auctioned for over 60 different charities at fundraisers. And I've raised over $1 million for local charities, and I just enjoy doing it. I just did one for a person running for state rep, and one time, I'll tell you a quick story. One time I'm at my house, and my brother Todd stopped by on a Saturday, and he heard me on the other end of the house, a bunch of screaming and hollering, And he left and he texted me and he said, I don't know what you're up to, but I don't want any part of it. But I was actually in the shower doing my, hey, now I'm 75, when I'm 75, that'll be it. But
Gotta practice.
I sold a lot of stuff in the shower.
So Merle, you have a program I know that helps people to build wealth. Real estate, you're an expert. You've had Schneider Real Estate for years, but this wealth building program through real estate really helps people to fulfill their lives, really. Talk about that program a little bit.
Well, again, I mentioned earlier that my father was instrumental. He made us all, he had 8 children and 6 of us went into real estate. He made us think about investing in real estate. So that's what we did as kids, helped him work on his rental properties. But in any event, as I went through my residential real estate, helping people just buy their home, I also have a program that I named it RICH, Real Estate Investors Coaching Headquarters. Real Estate Investing Coaching Headquarters. So I teach people, I actually, and I don't know if this is on the air, but I teach people how to use opium to build real estate. That's legal though. It's other people's money.
Okay.
So you might say, I don't have money to get started. I show you how to use private money and get started.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit, how does that work? I mean, can you give us a few of the tips that people might say, oh, well, I want to learn more about this now? Because
okay. Well, you're a lender, so you know that the conforming, you may qualify for a conforming 30-year fixed, non-owner occupied. That's great. The next level would be going to a local bank and doing what I call a portfolio loan, where they just look at a few different things than what you would look at for a conforming loan. And then the next level, if you don't qualify for that, is we have private people that have funds to invest. Now it's a little bit more expensive, but it still does the job. So we teach people, there's 2 ways that you want to buy, or 2 reasons why, purposes that you want to buy investment properties. So one would be, as we're familiar with, fix and flip. The other is the BRRRR method. So the BRRRR method is very similar, except the long range intention is to build a portfolio, whereas the flip, you just keep buying them, lipsticking them, fix them and sell them, make a profit and go do it again. So on the BRRRR method, we teach you how to buy, we teach you how to renovate it, we teach you how to get it rented, then we teach you how to refinance it, then we teach you how to repeat that all over again. So next thing you know, you have 3 properties. Next thing you know, you have 6 properties. Now, I got to a point where I kind of became my own banker. I didn't have to come up with any down payment money from other sources because I have equity. So right now I'm sitting on 25 single family homes. They're all under my nose right here in St. Charles, up and down 94 and St. Peter's and O'Fallon, because the economics are really good here, good population growth. But anyway, we teach people how to do those sorts of things, answer a lot of questions and get them past the fear factor.
My question to you as a follow-up would be, how difficult is that for somebody to get into? It sounds like, oh, wow, I've got to come up with money, I got to get banks. I mean, how would somebody, one of the key things you said was like, without money of your own, explain that a little bit if you would, because a lot of people are like, I can't do that. Doesn't sound like that's the case. Just about anybody could do this if they're willing to do the work and go after it and find it. And then that follows that. I'll get to the follow-up of that. But tell us, how does it? What somebody wants to get started? What would be the first thing they do?
Well, one of the things I do, I have about a 45 minute to an hour. I was teaching a class and I videotaped it. It's on YouTube. So what I do is I sit in the office. I might have 2 people, husband and wife. It might be 4 people, but I'll put it up on the screen. We'll start playing the video and then we'll stop at different intervals. And they ask questions, I answer them, I ask some questions, and then we get going. But I start with the very fundamentals. You know, the very fundamentals are, Mom and Dad always told us it's better to own real estate than to rent it, but most agents couldn't explain. I peel it back into each of the various elements, how you build wealth in real estate. So, as I mentioned before, it's possible that we talk about sources of funds, maybe from your retirement account. Maybe you get it from a friend. I just got $50,000 from a friend, and they just wanted to get into real estate, but they said, I don't want to own investment yet, but I want to watch what you do. So They became a private lender for me. So when a hard money lender, a private lender, we call them hard money lender, when they do that, they're really looking at the real estate more than the individual. Now, we want to know that you know what you're doing, and we'll show you how to buy, but you look at ARV, after repair value. That's the most this could sell for after you put the countertops in, the cabinets, everything. ARV, after repair value. Then you take that, let's say, times 75%, and then you subtract, if it needs $50,000 worth of repairs, subtract that, and that's what you ought to pay for it. So you work out a budget, you work out a plan. The hard money lender says, I think I'm going to turn out good on this once you fix it, but even if you just left and I took the property back, I can resell it and still I'm not hurt any. So that's true. Just about anybody could do it.
Wow. And so those people say, I don't need $150,000 in the bank to get this thing started. I could talk to Merle, and you could explain to somebody the path that they get into this and get it started.
Right.
Other follow-up I have is, next thing that pops in mind, how do I find properties? How would I find some place that I could go do this with? Is that you have some tips and tricks for that you could share in your videos?
Well,
you don't share all your tips here, but
no, that's all right.
But
like I said, I live in a world of plenty, so I don't ever worry about that. But there's a lot of different ways. But just like when we talked earlier about you being out in the community, I talk real estate all the time, and I let people know about my Rich program, and I'm always looking for property. And so every once in a while, you'll get a phone call. Hey, Mom and Dad passed away, have a home down in Spanish Lake. Would you come down and tell us what to do with it? So I just closed one last week. I didn't buy it, but I brought Jason, the buyer, and Steve and Laura, the seller, the brother and sister. I brought them together. Jason had hard money from Faster House and put the transaction together. We closed it, and then he said, since I brought it to Jason, he'll let me list it when it's time to flip it.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to get into this housing game, we happen to have an expert in the building here that's actually done. I just thought Schneider Real Estate, we help people sell houses, realtors. And then we talked the other day, your birthday. Wow. You've got the exciting part of the world that everybody's trying to get into, it seems like. And you've got the expertise. You've got training for this.
I teach people how to create unlimited passive income.
Unlimited passive income. Everybody should figure out how to do that, shouldn't they?
You just get mailbox money.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. Lots of great tips here that you've got for everybody. And I really appreciate you taking time to share some stuff.
Can you tell I love real estate?
Absolutely. When I had the opportunity, I was talking to Aaron, because I know Aaron a little bit, and said, yes, my dad will be on sometime, I promise. And
They keep me young. Aaron and Court both. They
really
keep me inspired.
Yeah, and I just, by virtue of being around the community, people see that I do try to help, and I think that some people then say, I'd be willing to introduce, some people. And that's as a tip for you, everybody. Help people, and then people will be willing to help you work out.
The more you give other people what they want, the more you'll get what you want, right?
Zig Ziglar, I think.
Zig Ziglar.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Your Little Castle Show, and we'll be back with more fun and some other experts that will be talking to us. But it was just a pleasure to have Merle in studio.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be back for more, everybody. Stay tuned. Your Little Castle on ABC. Giddy up.